Welcome to Real Talk with Sarah. In this show, we are taking a deep dive inside our bodies to look at the way we digest our food. We can really take for granted the complex system of digestion. And so I've got my favorite holistic nutritionist, Natasha Villeneuve, with me to explain this fundamental process and how we can improve on it through the food and lifestyle choices we make. We've got a lot to get to, so let's do this. Episode 8 of Real Talk with Sarah starts right now. Well, I am thrilled to have this woman back on the show because she doesn't hold back when it comes to our health. No topic is off limits, and when it comes to the way we digest our food, things can get pretty interesting. She's here today to help the rest of us get more comfortable with this topic so that we can improve our lives from the inside out. Welcome back, Natasha.
Thank you, Sarah.
I am so happy to have you here again.
And I get to talk about my favorite topic, digestion.
I know. It was funny because before we even decided to have you on the show, it was like, what do you want to be on for? What do you want to talk about? We knew this was going to be a topic. So why don't you get started with kind of walking us through the purpose of digestion and then the role it plays?
Sure, no problem. So digestion, I really feel, is the foundation to health. The whole purpose of digestion is to break down our foods to nutrients so that we can use those nutrients for energy production, for fuel, to rebuild and support healthy cells, tissues, organs in the body. So digestion is very essential, right? Mm-hmm. And digestion is a very complex process. It's something we don't often think about. We just eat our food and assume that our body's going to take care of it. Yeah. But digestion is a very complex process. It requires a lot of energy from our body. So if we're eating foods that are easy to digest, that's going to help support health and healthy energy production. If we're eating foods that are very difficult to digest, that can actually rob our body of energy.
Okay, so what are the foods that are difficult to digest, and then what are the easier ones?
Well, we'll get to that a little bit later on, but
okay.
I think first we should go through a little journey through the digestive system and talk a little bit about the basic anatomy and physiology of digestion, because a lot of people don't understand that process.
Definitely.
Right? So digestion really begins in the mouth. We ingest our food. That's the first step in digestion, right? And part of the mechanical process of digestion is chewing our food. So the more we chew our food, the more we break it down in the mouth, and that helps to aid the digestive process later on.
And I think so many people struggle with chewing enough. I remember my grandfather telling us that, chew until it becomes almost a liquid in your mouth. Yeah, yes. Like paste in your mouth.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that so many people with busy lives, and we're kind of sitting at our desks wolfing our lunch back.
That's right.
We don't always take that time.
Yeah, it definitely takes some awareness. It requires us to be conscious and to take that action. And when we chew our food, we also mix it in with our saliva. Our saliva contains an enzyme called amylase, which helps with the breakdown of carbohydrates. So the breakdown actually begins in the mouth. And then we swallow the food, and it travels down the esophagus into the stomach. The stomach it's much like a sac. It has two sphincters or valves at the top and the base of the stomach that shut to keep the contents of our meal in the stomach. And then the stomach churns and mixes the food in with hydrochloric acid and other digestive juices to break it down. This is where the first step of digestion occurs. So food will sit in the stomach for anywhere from 20 minutes if it's something simple like a piece of fruit, to several hours if we're eating a more complex meal. And by the time the stomach has processed the food and it's ready to move along, it should be about the consistency of like a pudding. It's called chyme. And then it moves on to the first part of the small intestine. So the first part of the small intestine is called our duodenum. And the duodenum has ducts that connect the pancreas and the gallbladder to the duodenum, to the small intestine. So our pancreas produces enzymes, amylase, protease, and lipase, that are secreted and break down the food even further. And the gallbladder concentrates and stores bile, which is secreted into the small intestine when we eat a high-fat meal to help break down fats and help with the absorption of fat-soluble vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin K, vitamin D. So it's a very important stage in digestion. Once the food is done there, it moves on to the remaining section of the small intestine, so about 20 feet of small intestine, all coiled in the gut. And this is where absorption of nutrients occurs. So there is still a digestive process occurring here as well. There are enzymes being secreted in the small intestine to break down the food even further.
Okay.
But by the time the food reaches the final part of the small intestine, it should be broken down to single nutrients. So carbohydrate foods like starches, breads, pastas, rice, vegetables should be broken down to glucose, which fuels us. Protein foods like animal protein or vegetarian protein sources are broken down to amino acids, which are used to build muscle, to build tissue in the body, to repair and heal tissue in the body. Fat foods are broken down to fatty acids, which are used for so many purposes in the body. They nourish and fuel the brain. They help to balance our hormones. They help to lubricate the joints. They help with cardiovascular health. They have so many roles and so many important functions. And then there's vitamins and minerals. So all of those nutrients, the amino acids, the glucose, the fatty acids, the vitamins and minerals are absorbed through the small intestine, through the lining of the small intestine into our bloodstream, into circulation. Those nutrients are then carried back to the liver, and the liver acts as our nutrient storehouse, warehouse, factory, distribution center, and determines where those nutrients are required in the body, and will distribute them to where they're required, or store excess if we have too much of something.
Okay, so everything goes through the liver at some point.
Yeah. The liver's not only the organ of detoxification, it has so many other roles. So it's involved in digestion as well.
Okay.
And then the remaining fiber, waste, some dead cells that have been picked up along the journey of digestion are eliminated through our stools. And it's really important, I know not a pretty topic, but it's really important to pay attention to our stools. It's a good indication of how well we're digesting our food. So everybody should be having 1 to 3 bowel movements a day. Transit time should be about 12 to 24 hours. And an easy way to measure transit time is to eat about a cup of beets. Usually it'll come out red if you have proper transit time, so that will help you determine how long the digestive process is taking.
And sorry, how long should it take?
12 to 24 hours.
12 to 24 hours. So in 12 to 24 hours after eating a cup of beets, we should see red stool.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
Stool should be consistent in color and texture. You shouldn't see undigested food in your stool. It shouldn't be overly smelly. You shouldn't have to sit for 20 minutes to pass a stool.
Yeah.
So if stools are loose, liquidy, if there's a lot of undigested food, that's a sign that there's probably inflammation in the gut, maybe not enough fiber. If the stool is lumpy or very dry, very hard,
like
or
pebbles. Like I know a lot of people that have a really hard time with constipation. They're like, it's like little rabbit food or rabbit poop.
Right.
Yeah.
So that could simply be dehydration, not enough water. It could be not enough fiber in the diet. It could be an indication of food allergies. There could be many different things happening.
Okay.
But it's important to pay attention.
Yeah, I think so many of us we flush and we just go on with our day and we don't realize how much information is in the toilet bowl.
Right.
So we did have a picture up. I'd like to see that picture up again to show the Bristol stool chart, because I know you talk about this a lot. So what is the sort of holy grail of the Bristol stool chart? I see there are all different types up there.
Yeah, so like I said before, you want your stool to be about the size of a banana, full and consistent in size and texture and color. It shouldn't float. It shouldn't have undigested food in the stool.
Okay, so number 4, I would say on that chart. 1, 2, 3,
3 and 4.
3 and 4 are sort of where we want to be. Okay.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people really struggle in that area.
Yes. Yes,
Really?
and there's so much that we can do. We'll get to that later on in the segment.
Yep.
But key really is that digestion is foundation. If you're not digesting, you've probably heard the saying, you are what you eat.
Yes.
You're not only what you eat, you're what you absorb, what you digest, what you assimilate. So if digestion isn't isn't occurring properly, then even if you're eating healthy food, you're not going to get those important nutrients. And the body requires all vitamins and minerals to function optimally. So if we become deficient in one single nutrient, like iron, for instance, a lot of people, especially women, are prone to iron deficiency, anemia.
Yes.
And that can be caused by poor digestion. If we're not producing enough hydrochloric acid in the stomach, we can't absorb iron properly. So it may not be that they're not eating enough iron. It may just be an issue of absorption.
Wow. Okay, and I know we're going to be talking more about how we can absorb better, but keep going. Keep educating us on our digestive process.
Yeah, well, so digestion, it's a complex process. The digestive system, there's so many interesting facts on the digestive system. Our intestines are surrounded by lymph nodes. The lymph nodes, are you familiar with the lymphatic system?
I'm familiar with the lymphatic system. Did not realize that we had that many near our digestive system.
Yeah, well, there's so much bacteria that travels through the digestive system, right? So the lymphatic system houses our lymph nodes, which contain white blood cells that help us neutralize invaders, toxins, pathogens. So because there's so much bacteria traveling through the digestive system, it's important to have that lymphatic system in place to help protect it, protect our body against invaders. There's a tremendous amount of energy that's expedited to digestion, like I was saying earlier. So if we eat foods that are really low in fiber and highly processed and difficult to digest, then that really robs us of energy. So a lot of people with digestive system issues end up struggling with energy issues, especially after a large meal.
Yeah, and they also deal with mental health issues as well. We don't feel well when we're not digesting properly and when we're not getting the nutrients. So you're saying that unless we are chewing properly and unless our entire digestive system is working properly, we are not benefiting from all of the nutrients that are even in the food.
That's right.
So it really is not just you are what you eat, but it's you are what you absorb.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And I did say that chewing is the first step in digestion, but our brain plays an important role as well. When we see, smell, or even think about food, the digestive process gets stimulated. So the brain will stimulate the secretion of bile and hydrochloric acid and all of these enzymes, these digestive juices, just by the smell, sight, or thought of food.
Wow. I don't think a lot of people know about hydrochloric acid. It sounds kind of scary and crazy, but we create it. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so hydrochloric acid is really important for the digestion of protein, all of the macronutrients, carbohydrates, protein, and fat, but primarily protein. And a lot of people don't produce enough hydrochloric acid. And interesting, I was going to talk about this later on, but we'll bring it in now. Heartburn or acid reflux, indigestion, those are all symptoms that are commonly diagnosed as high hydrochloric acid. So people think that they're producing too much acid in the stomach and take antacid medications to block that acid production. But in fact, most people who have those symptoms are not producing enough hydrochloric acid.
So how does this happen that we get diagnosed with this, that we feel like we need to be taking an antacid, and yet what we really need is to
stimulate the production of hydrochloric acid, right? Because what happens is we eat a meal, and if we're eating a meal that's already highly acidic or that's a bit hard to digest, then those foods will sit in the stomach. If we're not producing enough hydrochloric acid, those foods will sit in the stomach and basically ferment. And when that fermentation process occurs, it creates a lot of bacteria, which then creates a lot of gas and acid buildup. And when hydrochloric acid production is low, the sphincter that normally shuts when food enters the stomach is often weak and doesn't close properly, and therefore the acids and the gases rise back up into the esophagus.
Oh, wow.
Causing those symptoms, the burning sensation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of people will benefit from doing something like taking apple cider vinegar
Which again seems almost really counterintuitive. Why would I take acid when I feel like I have too much acid from all of this heartburn? But that really is. People ask me that all the time.
Right.
Why are you telling me to drink lemon water in the morning?
Right.
That's so acidic. It's supposed to balance my pH. How does this work?
Right, and it works to stimulate the production of hydrochloric acid. So those sour, bitter foods stimulate digestion. And most people, not everybody, but most people will benefit from increasing hydrochloric acid production when they experience those symptoms.
So we can do that naturally through using foods such as apple cider vinegar, lemons, other vinegars?
Not so much other vinegars. I'd recommend the apple cider vinegar, and it doesn't have to be straight. Some people will dilute it. Ideally, the more concentrated it is, the better.
And we are talking about the good quality apple cider vinegar with the mother.
With the mother, which is the pulp.
Which seems so strange to say with the mother, but it's a thing.
Yeah, exactly. And you can take it straight by the teaspoon or tablespoon, or you can put it in a little bit of water.
Speaking of which, a lot of people ask me this question. So how much is too much apple cider vinegar to take in a day? What would you recommend to start with and then work your way up to as a max?
I would recommend starting with 1 teaspoon before each meal and gradually increasing to about a tablespoon before each meal.
And is this for anybody? Can anyone benefit from taking apple cider vinegar before each meal, or just for people that are having issues?
Most people would benefit from it. It's not only helpful for digestion, it's great for inflammation in the body, so people who suffer from arthritis and other inflammatory conditions. It's great for speeding up metabolism, for burning fat. There's so many benefits to taking apple cider vinegar. Lemon often works well as well. You would need to take about half of a lemon, squeeze it into a glass of water, so a fresh lemon, not the concentrated lemon juice that you buy in the grocery store. And depending on the size of the lemon, if it's a smaller lemon, I would say about half of a lemon. If it's a larger lemon, 1/4 to 1/3 of a lemon squeezed into a glass of cool or room temperature or warm water and taken before meals. Ideally, with the apple cider vinegar and the lemon, you want to take it 15 minutes before a meal. If you can't think about it 15 minutes before, often I forget, take it a few minutes before, it's still going to help.
Yeah.
And the lemon water is beneficial for so many other things in the body as well. It's very alkalizing to the body. So even though a lemon is acidic outside of the body, it has an alkaline effect in the body. And an alkaline body is always a healthier body. Acidity causes a lot of inflammation and problems in the body.
That's so amazing. It is so interesting to think that this, it's so the opposite of what we would think, that we take acidic foods to make us more alkaline. And then we also know that there is acid in things like dairy, where we wouldn't even necessarily think of that being an acidic food.
Right.
But it is, and it can have that opposite effect where it can cause inflammation and cause problems.
Yeah, and rob calcium from the bones to neutralize the acidity.
Which is amazing. We could go on all day talking about everything,
Right.
but I kind of do want to quickly stay on that. We have about 1 minute left, so I just want to talk about dairy because so many people have issues with digesting dairy.
Yeah.
And why is that?
Well, in my opinion, cow's milk is made for cows. It's meant to take a baby calf that's born at a fairly large size, much larger than a human baby, to a massive animal in a very short amount of time. So there is a large amount of calcium in cow's milk and dairy products, but calcium needs to be in a certain balance with magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, vitamin K, vitamin D, boron, in order for us to absorb it into the bones properly. So when we drink cow's milk, we're getting a lot of calcium, but we're not necessarily getting all those other nutrients required to get it into the bones. So foods like leafy green vegetables, nuts and seeds, legumes have all of those nutrients in them. And cow's milk, the lactose is very hard to digest by humans.
All right, well, that's awesome. When we come back, Natasha's going to share the results of poor digestion. Back in a moment. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, we're talking about digestion, and holistic nutritionist Natasha Villeneuve is going to help us understand what happens when our digestive system is out of whack. What do we do when we are just really realizing that, oh my gosh, things are not going well? Either we're gassy, we're bloated, we're not happy with what we're seeing in the toilet bowl, we're just not feeling well. What's going on?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about those symptoms.
Yeah.
So there are some really obvious signs of poor digestion, right? You named some of them: gas, bloating, indigestion, heartburn, constipation, diarrhea, fatigue after meals. Those are all clear indications that something is going on with our digestive system. But because the digestive system is really the foundation to our health, and because if we're not digesting properly, we're not going to absorb all of those important nutrients properly, and toxic accumulation can occur in the body. Other symptoms can be related to poor digestion too, symptoms that we may not be so aware of that are connected with digestion. Things like headaches or brain fog, hormonal imbalances, inflammation in the body is a big one. So autoimmune conditions like allergies and asthma and arthritis, all of those symptoms and conditions can be linked back to poor digestion.
Wow, and I also know you mentioned skin conditions like eczema, psoriasis,
absolutely,
even acne.
Absolutely, absolutely. That is all tied in with a condition called leaky gut syndrome or increased intestinal permeability. So,
okay, do you want to go into that? And
a
tell
little
us?
bit.
Yeah.
I think it's important to go into it a little bit because a lot of people today have trouble with food intolerances or food allergies or leaky gut syndrome, and this occurs when in our small intestine we have cells that line the small intestine, and in between those cells there's a very tight junction where the important nutrients are absorbed into our bloodstream. We were talking about that earlier. When there's a lot of irritation and inflammation in the digestive system due to stress and diet, those tight junctions widen and they form like gaps between the cells. So then undigested food particles, parasites, pathogens can leak through the lining of the small intestine into our bloodstream, into circulation, and trigger an immune response. So if that inflammation, if the irritation is happening in the area of the digestive system, then the immune response can lead to conditions like Crohn's disease, well, first irritable bowel syndrome, and then later on potentially Crohn's disease, colitis. Those undigested food particles and allergens and toxins can also travel to other areas of the body, like the joints and the lungs, causing autoimmune conditions like asthma and allergies and arthritis, to the brain.
Wow, it's really making me realize everything is impacted by our digestion.
It is.
It's really, when you say it's the cornerstone of our health, you are not kidding around.
Right, right. The nice thing is that the digestive system is very quick to heal. So if we do some things to remove the stressors on the digestive system, and we'll talk about those stressors in a bit, and support the healing process, we can really repair the gut and improve our health.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's truly remarkable what the body is capable of doing, especially when you were saying that it repairs so quickly. We can damage it and damage it and damage it, and yet there's still hope. Right? There's still hope for people.
Is.
We can always make a change for better.
Well, when you think about it, the body's always striving toward health, right? It heals itself. If you cut your finger, your body will heal itself without you doing anything consciously. So if you do some things to support the healing process internally, and you treat your body properly with proper food and nutrition, then it can really turn around quickly.
Oh my gosh, for sure. And I know you've brought a bunch of products, and we're going to get to those after the break, I think.
Yes.
But prior to, keep walking us through. So when people are feeling feelings of bloating, gas, all of these things, what should they be doing first?
That's a really good question. Everybody's unique, everybody's different, and it depends on where the root cause is in the digestive system. Some people can have issues with the stomach. If they're more prone to stomach issues, then they might have symptoms like heartburn or acid reflux, or might result in ulcers or gastritis. Other people may have issues more with the small intestine, such as candida overgrowth or parasites, dysbiosis, which is an imbalance between the good and the bad bacteria. So it's really important to pinpoint where the problem is. Regardless, doing things like drinking water with lemon in it every day before a meal, apple cider vinegar, increasing fiber, increasing whole natural foods, all of those things will help to support digestion and improve your digestion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I think we could talk forever on the important role of digestion and how important it is. And I'm so excited to be sitting down with you talking about it today, because I feel like for so many of us, we just take it for granted. Once the package is thrown away, we've eaten whatever it is, we don't really think about what's happening.
Yes.
And we really need to be mindful of what we're putting in and how it's being processed in the body.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And even things like exercise is really important, because the digestive system is primarily made up of muscle tissue. People don't really realize that as food is traveling through the gut, the esophagus, the small intestine are made up of muscle, and they actually contract to propel things along. The intestine, the motion of the intestine is called peristalsis. So it contracts, the muscle layers contract to propel the food along. So if you're inactive and your muscles are not toned, then you'll have a lazy gut.
I don't think anybody would ever think to put that together, that if we're not active and we're not exercising, then our digestion isn't either. Oh my goodness. All right, after the break, Natasha will share the main causes of poor digestion. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Real Talk with Sarah. We're talking about digestion on this show, and Natasha Villeneuve is about to share the common culprits of poor digestion. So what are they? What do we need to avoid?
Well, I bet you can guess number one on my list.
Number one on your list is probably gluten or processed foods.
Processed foods would be one for sure, but I was going to go with sugar. Sugar and refined carbohydrates. So your white flour, white bread, white rice, white pasta. So sugar and refined carbohydrates are very, they're void of nutrients. They don't have any fiber in them. They act like glue in the gut. Picture a lasagna pan after you bake a lasagna, right? You know how you have to soak it? Because the noodles and the cheese is all stuck to the pan.
Yes.
Imagine what it does in your gut.
I think about that sometimes when I do see meals like that, or that you really can't scrub out, or even chocolate, because I love chocolate. But sometimes if it's melted chocolate, I'm thinking, how hard is it for my body to get through this?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So sugar not only is very gluey and sticky in the gut, it also feeds the bad bacteria. So we have a balance of friendly and unfriendly bacteria in the gut. We all have the good and the bad.
Yeah.
The problem is that we need to have more of the good than the bad. And if we eat too much sugar, if we eat a lot of sugar, and the average North American consumes about 120 pounds of added sugar a year, then that sugar will feed the unfriendly bacteria and kind of crowd out the good bacteria, causing a candida yeast overgrowth, or SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. It causes an imbalance in the gut. And those friendly bacteria are so critical. There's more and more research being done on the good bacteria in our gut and our microflora, and its impact on the brain, on the immune system, on the heart, on our entire body. Those little guys, those little microscopic bacteria, they're absolutely incredible. They communicate with our brain. They help with the production of certain nutrients. So it's really important that we keep our gut flora in balance, and eating too much sugar will really feed those unfriendly bacteria.
Oh, I bet. And so can you tell, maybe we'll get to this later, but I want to know what some of the symptoms of overgrowth of candida. You've mentioned that a few times, and a lot of people are dealing with it,
Yes.
but may not even realize it.
Yeah, so it could be things like yeast infections, chronic colds and flus, definitely gut discomfort, so a lot of bloating, gas, indigestion. It could be constipation or diarrhea, brain fog, and definitely cravings for sugar. Candida yeast, craves sugar. It's its fuel, right? So if you're constantly, just dying for sugar, it could be a candida yeast overgrowth. It could also be blood sugar imbalances.
And you can also speak with a holistic nutritionist and find out for sure. Okay, what's another common culprit?
You mentioned processed food. So processed food is anything in a box, a can, a package, anything that's been manufactured. And the problem with processed food is that we eat too much of it. Not all processed food is horrible. I eat some processed foods, but it's important that the majority of our food is whole natural. And today, most people eat more processed food than natural food. So processed foods typically are lower in fiber, lower in nutrients. Highly processed foods will have food chemicals in them that need to be processed by the digestive system. So they're harder to digest and they don't provide those nutrients that we need. Another common culprit would be caffeine and alcohol. So caffeine really stimulates digestion. It speeds up the digestive process. So a lot of people will say that they're regular, they go to the bathroom every morning, but often it's because they're having caffeine before they go to the washroom, and caffeine acts as a laxative. So your body becomes dependent on it over time. And caffeine, just 1 cup of coffee a day takes about 24 hours for your liver to process. It takes your liver about 24 hours to process the caffeine from 1 cup of coffee. So it's very stressful on the liver. And the liver already has enough to deal with all the toxins that we're exposed to today. The liver's involved in over 1,000 known functions in the body, so it's a really critical organ. So consuming caffeine, especially if somebody is stressed and somebody's prone to inflammation, that can really cause a lot of irritation in the digestive system. And alcohol does as well. Alcohol has to be processed by the liver. It passes through the lining of the stomach. So nutrients are not absorbed through the lining of the stomach, but drugs and alcohol will pass through the lining of the stomach and irritate and damage the cells that line the stomach. So leading to things like stomach ulcers and definitely inflammation in the stomach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other culprits?
Yes, absolutely. Antibiotics, like frequent antibiotic use or misuse of antibiotics.
I was going to say, and explain to us that it kills all of your good and bad bacteria.
Right. It doesn't differentiate between the good and the bad, right? So, and people are becoming more aware of probiotics today. Even doctors and pharmacists are sometimes recommending them after an antibiotic use. Antibiotics certainly have a time and a place. The problem is that we tend to use them frequently, and often we misuse them, and we don't necessarily take the probiotics after to restore that good bacteria. So during and after treatment with antibiotics, it's really important to supplement with a probiotic supplement. And it takes, science shows that it takes about 45 days of consistent use of a probiotic supplement after a treatment on antibiotics to restore that friendly bacteria.
45.
Sometimes more. If somebody already has underlying gut issues, it could be years.
Wow. So we really should be eating prebiotics and eating probiotics, and then if we do an antibiotic round, definitely taking a high quality probiotic like
supplement
you can find it.
For at least 45 days consistently. The consistency is really, really important.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay. I just want to keep going, but we got to take a break.
Okay.
After the break, Natasha is going to share her very best tips and strategies on improving our digestion so that we can feel our very best. We'll be back right in a moment. Welcome back to Real Talk. We're talking about digestion on this show, and I've got holistic nutritionist Natasha Villeneuve with me to break it all down into steps we can take to improve our digestion and our health. So what do we do? Where do we start if we are having issues with our digestion? We know that we've got bloating, we're gassy, we're constipated, we're not feeling our best, we might have brain fog, all of these things.
Right.
where do we start?
Well, the first step would be in reducing those stressors that we mentioned earlier, right? So the sugar, the processed food, caffeine, alcohol, food intolerances. A lot of people have food intolerances. So if you're aware of what foods you're intolerant to, reducing those, that would be the first step in healing and supporting digestion. The second step would be to increase whole natural foods.
Yeah.
So the majority of our diet, 75 to 80% of our diet, should consist of whole natural foods. And that's things like vegetables, fruits, nuts and seeds, legumes, so beans, peas, lentils, spices and herbs. So for instance, a really easy way to increase our fiber is to incorporate seeds in our diet. Not too many people eat seeds, and they're really high in the good fatty acids, those omega fatty acids, and also really high in fiber. So I keep a mixture of a variety of seeds in a jar on my countertop. I keep flax seeds, chia seeds, hemp seeds, sesame seeds, all mixed up, sometimes pumpkin seeds.
And this is literally your jar.
Yeah, that's my jar from home.
I love it.
And sprinkle it into smoothies, onto salads. I also grind a small amount every few days, keep that in the refrigerator, and use that on things like salad. So I'll put the whole seeds in a smoothie because the blender is going to grind it, and I'll get the benefits of those oils. But if I'm sprinkling it onto food, then I'll use the ground seeds.
Okay. I noticed that you didn't mention meat and fish and poultry in your whole foods. And I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on animal protein?
Yeah, I definitely think it's beneficial for some people. I think, everybody is unique, and everybody has different requirements at different stages in their life. I myself was vegan for 10 years and then went back to eating animal protein when I got pregnant with my first child. So I think it's really important to know your body and to pay attention to your body. To follow a vegan diet and get enough iron and B12, it can be challenging. So you really have to do it right and pay attention to what you're eating.
All right.
But going back to digestion and whole foods, those whole foods contain prebiotics, contain fiber, contain enzymes. So fruits and vegetables, live foods, foods that come from the earth, contain enzymes which help you break down your food.
Foods that rot when you leave them on the counter for a few days, yes.
Yeah. So when you shop in the grocery store, it's important to shop the perimeter of the store. Yeah. The perimeter is where most of those whole natural foods are. And then there's some supplements that you can take to aid digestion. There's things like teas. There's all kinds of teas. All the herbal tea companies make their own formulas for digestion.
This is funny. This is called Smooth Move. I think we can all guess what's going to happen if we take Smooth Move.
Yeah, and it's very gentle, so it doesn't cause any cramping,
Is there senna
bloating.
in here? That's a natural laxative. Is that what's in here?
There's a variety of herbs in that one. There's all kinds of different brands for regulation. And then just about every herbal tea company has a digestive formula. Digestion teas usually have things like peppermint or ginger, fennel, and you can drink those teas individually as well. Fennel is really great for gas and bloating. They give fennel. Fennel is in gripe water, which is given to babies when babies are colicky, right?
Oh,
so fennel is really helpful if you get the pain and the cramping after meals from a gas buildup. It helps to really soothe the gut. Ginger is really good for stimulating digestion, and so is peppermint. Both act a little bit differently, so you have to figure out which one works best for you.
And so you're suggesting in tea that we use these.
That's a nice gentle way to help support digestion.
Yeah.
And they can be taken before a meal or after a meal, with a meal. And then there's other supplements that can be taken to help with digestion. I mentioned enzymes earlier. So our body produces enzymes. Our pancreas, our small intestine produces enzymes. We get enzymes through the diet. Live foods contain enzymes. And enzymes work to break down our food into smaller particles. So I think of enzymes as almost like, do you remember Pac-Man?
Yes, I do.
breaks down the food to those single nutrients. But with age and stress and processed foods and caffeine and alcohol, we produce less and less of these enzymes. So sometimes we need to supplement. So something like this one that you had a minute ago, the Enzyme Force, contains a full spectrum of enzymes in it. It's a plant-based enzyme product that contains enzymes to break down all food groups, everything from carbohydrates, proteins, fats, fibers. So if you have trouble with digestion and you have those obvious symptoms like fatigue after a meal, bloating after a meal, taking an enzyme supplement will help.
Is this a pill form?
This is a capsule form,
capsule,
yes.
okay.
Yeah. So you can take them with your meal. You can take it before, during, or after a meal. You can take a couple of them with your meals. I personally keep it in my purse and I eat it. I take an enzyme if I'm eating out at a restaurant or if I'm eating something that is normally a little bit more difficult for me to digest. And then there's enzymes that are more specific for certain problems, like gluten, digestive enzymes, or lactase to help with.
So would this be for somebody who's gluten intolerant, or just knows that every time they eat gluten, they feel crummy after?
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Somebody with celiac disease isn't going to be able to consume gluten with these enzymes. They're still going to struggle. But somebody who feels a little bit bloated or sluggish after eating gluten would benefit from taking a gluten support enzyme.
And I have to say, would that not really be a note for somebody if they're really feeling that way after eating gluten? Maybe it's time to decide to eliminate gluten from the diet, even just for a short time, to see how you feel.
Yes, yeah, that's a great suggestion. So cutting it out of the diet for at least 10 days and keeping a food journal, journaling and recording all of your symptoms after you eat. Because you can react to a food up to 48 hours later, like dairy intolerance, for instance. If somebody has not a full dairy allergy, but if they have an intolerance, they can show symptoms 48 hours later. So recording in a food log or a food journal for at least a few weeks, all of the symptoms, the timing, your energy levels will help you bring some awareness and help you connect those symptoms to what you're eating.
I think that's such a great strategy. I tell this to so many people, write down how you feel after, because at the end of the day, it's hard to know how you felt after breakfast.
Yes.
We don't really remember how we felt after that first snack where we had that thing that sometimes disagrees with us, but sometimes doesn't. Like, we can't remember. So keeping track as we go along throughout the day is such a great strategy.
It's such a great tool for sure.
It is.
Another supplement that I'm a big fan of, and we talked about this last time.
Yes, and we both take this all the time now, you and I, and now I've got Roger taking it too. And I want to talk about it a little bit more after you tell us why we need to be taking this for digestion.
So cultured coconut is a fantastic probiotic food or probiotic supplement. There's lots of probiotics that you can take. You can get probiotics, great quality probiotics in pill form or in powder form in the health food store in the refrigerator section, and those are fantastic. Cultured coconut came out on the market a couple of years ago, and I'm a huge fan. I work in the natural food pantry in the health food store, and I see we get so many testimonials from customers. I mean, the product's just flying off the shelf because it is so highly concentrated in good bacteria. So it contains trillions of bacteria in just 1 tablespoon and up to 40 different strains. So our microflora in our gut is very diverse, and it requires a diverse amount, or like I think of it as like a field of wildflowers, right? So the more diversity we have, the more lush it is, the healthier it'll be. And the cultured coconut is a fermented food product. It's a kefir, but it's a non-dairy kefir.
Yes,
kefir is traditionally made from dairy products.
Right, so this is made from coconut.
Yes, it's made from coconut. So for people who have dairy intolerance, cultured coconut is a great alternative.
It is,
and it really works for digestive problems.
Yeah, it really works, and it really tastes delicious, which is really nice, because I know a lot of people with kefir, they think it's a little bit too tangy or whatever, and I'm thinking that people that do have a dairy intolerance, that's definitely not going to be a great way to improve their digestion by taking a dairy product. So one thing that I want to mention for anyone, because a lot of people reached out after the first episode to say, where can I buy it and how can I get it? So I was trying to talk to people, making sure we shake it really, really, really well, but that there are still going to be, I don't know if we can pick this up on the camera, there are still these little white chunkies
of coconut.
Of coconut that's delicious, and to not think that you need to get this completely opaque and shaken before you can start taking it.
Yes, and like I mentioned earlier with probiotics, consistency is really important.
Yeah.
So taking it every day. You only need 1 tablespoon. You would start with a teaspoon. Start gradually. And build up.
Why is it important to start gradually when we start trying new things with our digestion with probiotics?
Well, with probiotics, they do have a cleansing effect on the body. So our body is not used to all of that good bacteria. And if you take too much at once, it might result in things like yeast infections and a little bit of discomfort in the gut.
Okay.
So repopulating slowly, starting with 1 teaspoon, gradually every few days, increasing until you build up to 1 tablespoon is a wise idea.
And 1 tablespoon is sort of the max, even though it used to be 2 tablespoons on this product, but they were like, wait a minute, this is working so well.
Until they had a bunch of research done on the product and discovered how much bacteria was truly in 1 tablespoon.
That's amazing. All right, what have you got for us? What else have you got?
The other product that I brought today, I could bring so many things for digestion, right? But another favorite of mine is aloe vera juice. So aloe vera is an incredible plant. We know that aloe vera is great for healing and soothing the skin when we have a burn or a wound, a cut.
Yeah.
It really helps to speed up the healing process and to soothe and reduce inflammation. Does the same thing in the gut. So first of all, aloe is very bitter tasting. So like the lemon and apple cider vinegar, anything that's sour or bitter tasting will stimulate digestion.
Okay.
So aloe vera acts as a digestive system stimulant. If you take it before a meal, like the apple cider vinegar or the lemon water, it will stimulate the production of hydrochloric acid, of bile, which aids digestion. And then it also helps to soothe and heal the lining of the digestive tract. So a lot of people today have inflammation in the lining of the intestines and the lining of the digestive system that causes a lot of pain and irritation, discomfort, causes that leaky gut syndrome or increased intestinal permeability that we spoke about earlier, which can lead to autoimmune conditions. So aloe is really great for soothing and healing all of those symptoms. And it can be taken, you can start with about a tablespoon before each meal, 2 to 3 times a day. 3 times is ideal, but a lot of people won't think to take it before lunch, especially if they're eating at work, right?
Yeah.
So if you can get it in twice a day, in the morning before breakfast and then before dinner, that's great. And
I was just going to recommend that one way to take it to work is, you know those syringes that you can buy at the drugstore for things? People can use a syringe and then just throw that in a little baggie and take it to work.
I never thought of that. That's great.
It's an easy tip as opposed to you can't lug all of this, or even in a Tupperware container or something. It's awkward.
Yeah.
So that was a good tip that I learned along the way.
That's great. Yeah.
And what else have we got? Our last product here.
Our last product, I brought a cleansing kit. I know we're talking about digestion today and not so much detoxification, but I really feel that cleansing at least twice a year in the spring and the fall are great times to do a gentle nutritional cleanse, really beneficial for digestion and for overall health. As I mentioned earlier, the liver is involved in digestion, and it's our primary organ of detoxification. It's constantly filtering the blood, removing toxins. So it's really important to keep the detox organs clean and functioning optimally, and doing a gentle cleanse. So a gentle cleanse would involve a really clean, healthy diet for a period of 1 to 3 weeks. Some people will do a 1-month cleanse. So those whole natural foods, you'd be eating pretty well 100% whole natural foods during a cleanse. A lot of live foods, fresh foods. Some people will juice. And then taking a herbal product like this, a herbal support product that will support those organs of detoxification. So the herbs in these products work to support the liver and the kidneys and the bowels and the lymphatic system and our skin and our lungs so that they can do their job optimally and remove those toxins from the body. Because if we have a lot of toxins stored in the body, that's going to impair digestion, it's going to impair our immune system, every system in the body. So people feel great after doing a cleanse. They find that their digestion improves, their energy improves, they can think more clearly, they feel they have a stronger immune system, their skin clears up. So definitely something for everyone to do. And there's lots of different options. If people want to go into a health food store, they can ask. At the Natural Food Pantry, there's always somebody on the floor trained in nutrition, so they can help direct them to the right products and what they need.
Oh my goodness, Natasha, thank you so much for all of this. I know we all learned a ton, as we always do from you. You are the real deal. You are amazing. Thank you for all of this knowledge. Thank you so much for being here. When we come back, I'll share my final thoughts. Back in a moment. 16 years after beginning to really care for my health, not a meal goes by that I don't consider what I'm putting into my body and the cascade effects that occur as a result of my food and lifestyle choices. I'm so grateful for teachers like Natasha Villeneuve, who really highlight the importance of opting for whole foods over processed ones, reducing stress, limiting alcohol and caffeine, and getting proper sleep, among other strategies, so that we can truly thrive in our lives. As Natasha shared, it's impossible to experience optimal health with poor digestion. We can often be tempted in the moment, but after we've eaten a real whole food meal, we feel so much better. It's worth it to stick with making choices that align with what we really want. Want better health? Eat better food. Want more energy? Eat better food. Want to sleep better, experience better moods, have less inflammation, and improve symptoms of chronic pain? Yep. Eat better food. If I sound like a broken record, it's because we still need to learn this lesson. It's hard to avoid all that temptation out there, but raising our awareness about what goes on after we've thrown away the package can have a profound effect on our ability to make better choices for our health. I want that for me, and I want that for you too. Until next time, I want you to remember one thing, that no matter where you are, and no matter how it feels, you are never, ever alone. See you next time.